You're listening to the Word Slinger Podcast, episode 16, High Performance Building with Todd Collins and Mark Attard. This episode of the Word Slinger Podcast is brought to you by my new book, Citadel Omnibus, which you can pick up online at Amazon.com or find it and other books at kevintumlinson.com/books.
It's the Word Slinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tumlinson, the Word Slinger.
Word Slinger.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know when you're listening. You could be listening anytime, so I'm going to cover all my bases. How are you? It's morning for me, actually, and not all that early. I've been up for a while, so I've got coffee in me. I'm feeling good. And, hey, a very special message. Merry Christmas to you. If you're listening to this after Christmas, I understand. Actually, you're technically going to be listening to this after Christmas because I'm not putting it out until the day after. So it's scheduled to go up day after Christmas. So Merry Christmas. I hope you had a good one. I hope you had a safe and happy holiday. Spent some time with family and got to eat some delicious Christmas dinners and open some really cool Christmas presents. So, and I will say here that I'm a Christian, so this season has a deeper meaning for me, a spiritual meaning for me, and I hope if you share that belief, or even if you don't, I hope that God blesses you in the coming year. So, and on that note, I don't know how to segue into into the topic exactly, but this week I'm talking to a couple of guys at the same time, which is a first for the show, which I call out at the head of the show. But I'm talking with Todd Collins and Mark Attard of AE Building Systems, and they're part of this. They're part of this movement toward more efficient green construction for homes and businesses. And it's about reducing environmental impact, but it goes beyond that because there are so many aspects to building now that just frankly didn't exist even 30 years ago. You've got to consider there's always been concerns about noise reduction and that sort of thing, but now you have issues of making things hypoallergenic and are allergy friendly, I guess, and energy efficiency, and those things they complicate the building process. But these guys have a system that helps simplify that, and you can check them out online at aebuildingsystems.com, where you can learn more about them, learn more about their system. They have a really interesting story about where this comes from. Because it comes from overseas. It comes from Germany, largely, some of it. I know that there's more to it than that, and they'll tell you all about it. But at any rate, these are great guys. They were a joy to talk to. It was really interesting. This is one of those times where, because I do a little bit of conversation before the show, before we actually start recording, just to kind of familiarize myself with the guest a little, if I haven't talked to them directly before. If we've only communicated via email, I get a sense of their rhythm and what they're going to be able to tolerate from me as far as my sense of humor or whatever. So, and also I just like talking to people. So, there's that. But before the show, we actually had a really interesting conversation about the two guys are not just they don't just do this as for a living. They're customers, So they were talking about their homes and what they had done. And I was talking about my home and what I'd like to have done. So it's very fascinating. And if you have any interest in remodeling your home, they've got some resources that can help you. Or if you're building from scratch, say you're a commercial developer, or even if you're building your home, they admit that this is a more expensive process up front. But like many things that are driven by quality, the payout comes later. Lower energy bills, greater health, better sleep at night. These things are invaluable, and more so than you might think. So, I'm going to let them talk now. But thanks for tuning in, And again, check them out online at aebuildingsystems.com, where you can learn more, sign up for their newsletter, get some updates, and tell them I said hello. So for now, here are Todd Collins and Mark Attard. Hi everybody. So this week, it's a first for the Word Slinger podcast. Actually, we have two guests on at one time, and it's already been a little bit of fun. But I have with me right now Todd Collins and Mark Attard, and they are with AE Building Systems, and these guys create high performance building products, and we're going to let them tell you what that means. But it's already shaping into a pretty interesting story. So, hi guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. And now that was Todd that just said hello, and Mark who said thank you. And I'm only going to do that once, so make whatever notes you can. So tell me a little bit about the company, guys. This is, I'm looking on your website right now, which is, for the audience, is aebuildingsystems.com, and we'll put that in the show notes. But tell me a little bit about what you guys do.
Well, this is Mark. I'll speak first. Todd Collins started the company back in 2011 as a source for high-performance building products, because when he looked at the building landscape, he saw that there was some demand from the consumer for energy-efficient, comfortable, healthy home, but a lot of the builders and architects out there really didn't know how to source the products to make that happen. So Todd started in 2011. I came on roughly 2012, about 2012, and we kind of built up the product lines that we offer, and we came to the conclusion that where we really wanted to concentrate was on the building envelope. So those 4 outside walls of your house. We provide the products such as walls and windows, insulation, air sealing products, as well as a mechanical fresh air system, and with the idea that people could have a house that they could sit in comfortably on a cold winter day or a hot summer day, and not spend a lot of energy to do so.
So when you say high performance, are we largely talking about energy efficiency? Is that the end result we're looking for?
Here, Mark, I think it's probably good to answer this question by going back even further. So Mark and I both have taken the Passive House certification training. And Passive House is an energy efficiency standard out of Europe. The Europeans tend to deal with much higher energy costs. 1, 2, they have, I think, more in-depth. They're more in tune with climate change and various negatives that come from that. But their incentive to build energy-efficient buildings, homes, schools, etc., any type of building, is much greater. And Passive House the objective with Passive House is to reduce the energy required for heating or cooling, depending on the climate, if it's a heating climate or a cooling climate, by 90%. That's 90%. And to do it passively, and thus the name Passive House. Now, house is a literal translation in the U.S. H-A-U-S in German actually means a place of inhabitation. So that includes commercial buildings, schools, etc. So in the U.S., we say Passive House, and it doesn't refer specifically to residential single-family construction. It's much greater than that.
And I would say that the emphasis on energy efficiency, the idea is that if we solve the energy efficiency issue, a lot of what goes into creating an energy efficient building also goes into making a building what we would call comfortable, temperate comfortable, but also indoor air quality comfortable, because we're eliminating pollutants that can get into the building by tightening it up. There's a lot of sub issues that get solved by managing energy efficiency.
And some of that is health issues then, right?
Correct.
That's interesting.
Very much so.
Health and generally durability is another issue that by building it right, you're getting much more durable and long lasting assembly, a home or commercial building.
So, in that light, I mean, given that it's a long-lasting build, I mean, is it something that might be prohibitively expensive for certain people, or is this affordable?
It's arguable. There are passive house builders that are actually doing projects. They're very simple in design. Shoebox with a modified shed roof. I mean, if you can keep the design pretty simple, you can reach that passive house level of energy efficiency at a pretty fair price point. The key is the more complicated the project gets, the more expensive it gets.
Yeah. That's what.
And there's also geographic issues, but generally in Europe, it might be a 3 to 5% increase in production costs or building costs to build one of these. In the U.S., we're looking at 10 to 20% incremental costs to build a high percent, and I might say 5. There are folks that are doing pretty extraordinary building envelopes at a very fair price. There's a guy here in Colorado that managed to knock one out at $150 a square foot. There's a project in Maine that was $120 a square foot. Those are very low building costs.
Yeah.
So it really is a function of a lot of variables. Your design is going to impact it, and how you approach the project is going to impact that price.
So talk about the materials. Like, is there anything unusual about the materials used in these builds?
Well, on its surface, no. meaning that we sell windows.
Yeah.
You need windows in a house. There's plenty of windows out there, but the specifics, there's a great deal of difference. And if we take the example of windows, for instance, basically it looks like the same type of window. It's got a frame, it's got glass, it has an operational aspect to it. But when you look at the performance numbers of it, typically we're dealing with like a triple pane window, with a insulative frame of some sort, and the combination of that will yield a performance of the window that's somewhere anywhere between 2.5 and 3 times better than the standard window we're used to here in the U.S.
Well, and one thing that's important to note, our lowest end window is generally a 25 to 40% better than the standard, say, Anderson or Pella or Champion. It's a significant bump, and there's 2 primary variables. It's the thermal performance, but also the air infiltration. We lose approximately 30 to 40% of our heat in the winter from air just getting through windows and the cracks around the windows, the cracks all over the house.
Yeah.
They say if you add up all the cracks in a standard code built house, you have an opening about the size of a 2x2 window.
Well, that's pretty significant. That's air going in and out pretty easily.
Right. The air infiltration numbers on our windows are extremely low compared to standard window manufacturers out there.
And I do think it's important to note that we've selected products for our product line that help people meet the basic standards, whether it's passive house or whether they're just trying to get to a better performing house. Mm-hmm. Those are the 2 things that Todd just pointed out are the primary concern: the thermal performance and the air infiltration numbers. So if you can increase the thermal performance and reduce the air infiltration numbers, you're going to be significantly better off than someone who's not paying attention to that. And although we, we offer a variety of products that we like, that we believe in, that fit that bill, but there's many ways in which to skin a cat, so to speak. And so what we are, the other aspect of our company is that we're out there educating people about this. And they may not necessarily use our products or only use some of our products for their project, but at the end of the day, besides our mission of selling and making a profit, our real mission is to educate and help people understand how they don't have to settle for what we've been used to in the building industry in this country.
I like the word suffer.
Yeah.
But I like how you threw skinning cats in there, though. So that's going to be assumed to be one of the building materials now is cat skins.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
You were about to say something.
I think what's important to add to that is, you got the thermal performance and air infiltration. Mark says that, we're about educating. We love working on these projects that are passive house or wanting to get to a passive house level, the energy efficiency standard out of Europe. However, we're also all about helping builders and architects make incremental improvements. There's a great number of folks out there that want to do better. They want to truly, start steering their customers towards a more efficient and comfortable building, and they need help getting there. And for us to help them just make some incremental improvements is fulfilling in itself. Not having to always work on these super energy efficient buildings that are just tight as ever and super insulated, etc. Those are fun to work on for certain, but to make incremental improvements is also our objective.
So who is your customer? Not necessarily the end user, but I mean, who is it that's coming to you guys as a client?
It's all the above. You mentioned not end user. Sometimes it is.
Oh, really? Okay.
Sometimes it's a building, a developer or a homeowner or future homeowner, I should say. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we spend a lot of time with architects because if we're not, working with them, the products don't get spec'd in the designs. And then almost always our end customer who's actually writing the check is the builder. Yeah. Almost always. There's a situations where in new construction we've got a homeowner that's writing checks, but so we have to sell through the entire process, the entire continuum.
So how do they find you? I mean, are they coming looking for these materials, and that's how they come across you guys?
It's a combination of that and a combination of our outreach activities. We do a lot of presentations, mm-hmm. Workshops, etc. I'm heavily involved in the Colorado Green Builders Guild, mm-hmm. Colorado Renewable Energy Society. Mark is involved in various organizations to include, he's a board member on the local Passive House Alliance board. And, we do a fair bit of outreach, and we're constantly looking for folks that have that desire to either do a passive house or do, again, like I said, incremental improvements.
Yeah. So when I come to you, either I'm the end user and I've hired a builder or whatever, when I come to you and I want to build using this, what's the first step for me? Like, where's the process start?
Well, if you come to us, and this is there's a lot of variety in when people show up at our doorstep. I mean, sometimes they already have an architect and a builder. Sometimes they're looking for direction as to who might build this way or design this way. Yeah. And so we have a great deal of architects and builders who are looking to make these improvements that we're happy to pass their name along. But at the end of the day, we work, as Todd said, we work through the whole process. So we'll start off, if we have a customer that comes to us like you, and we'll refer you to an architect, and then we'll work with that architect on budgetary items as well as design issues. Further budget refinements happen with the builder, and of course, you as the customer you're paying the bill, so you're putting your 2 cents in all along the way. Right. And hopefully, what we're doing is we're imparting a little bit more knowledge to the architect. We're helping you to understand where that how that house is going to end up, and which you're the one that's going to live in it. So at the end of the day,
presumably,
we're imparting some knowledge to help the architect and the builders design and build better, but we're also helping you to understand how this house functions, and because we can put a lot of these products in a house, but your behavior will dictate as much as anything else how the energy is used in that house and how comfortable you feel in that house.
So are there any restrictions on this? Like, are there territories in the U.S., for example, where you can't use this process or this system?
No, because the system is simple. The system is simple, right? If you're not pursuing a specific energy efficiency standard like Passive House, really what you're doing is you're saying, I want to make my house better.
Yeah, you're kind of overshooting.
Yeah, and we're overshooting code is what we're doing, really. Yeah. Have
you run into any trouble or any hang-ups when it comes to local code or anything?
I think what we've run into is a lack of understanding of what's being done, and once it's explained and the specifications of the products that we're putting in are presented, they generally the code officials are all on board with it.
And often we run into amazement.
Yes, exactly.
What's interesting is, one of my clients, for example, did a deep energy retrofit. He basically disassembled the house down to the studs, even removed the trusses on the roof and redid the roof. He had a blower door done to determine how tight it was after he got it all buttoned up, back up. And he blew like a 0.4 ACH 50, which is a number that indicates how tight it is. Now, most new construction homes run between 2 and 7, and in 2012 code actually requires a 3.0 or less. And he blew a 0.4, which is nearly 10 times tighter than what 2012 code is requiring.
Yeah.
So often what we're getting into is this amazement that, they're just floored that, one, the windows are 0.088 U value in the center of the glass, total assembly 0.13, and code requires 0.3. So they're more than double. Yeah. Almost, they're 2.5 times better in thermal performance.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, I recently had a customer who his contractor was running an inspector through the house, and some people know this, some people don't, but each window, no matter which window you're buying, has to have a sticker on it that states how that window performs. And the stickers had already been taken off the window, and so the inspector was pointing out to the contractor that, hey, these windows better be a 0.30 or better because that's what our code states. And the contractor said, well, I think these are 0.16. And the inspector turned to him and says, you're lying. There's no way that a window performs that well. And then he found the sticker and he handed it to him and he goes, wow, I stand corrected. I can't believe that there's a production window out there that actually performs that well.
I may have to come to you guys for some windows because I think at this point mine are basically like putting tissue paper over an exhaust fan.
Yeah, yeah, I've been there. I've had that in my house.
So okay, what about which that actually brings up a question, and maybe I just don't fully understand the whole process, because I mean I'm looking at your website and it seems like it's oriented mostly toward like new build, or as you said, somebody took their house down to the foundation practically, or maybe literally, and built up. But what if I'm just looking to bump up energy efficiency in my home? Would I come to you guys for windows, for example, just windows?
You could, but there's a lot more that we can do, and that's referred to as a retrofit or a deep energy retrofit. There's, Mark in his particular home, his siding was getting rather ragged and ready to replace. His windows were single pane aluminum frames. They were not only awful, but beyond awful in a big way.
Wait, have you guys been in my house? Is this what?
Yeah, right. No, we're not talking about your house. We're talking about Mark's. So what Mark did is he removed all the siding and then added 4.5, 5 inches of mineral wool board. It's an insulation product. So he basically brought his exterior walls up to an R20 beyond. R20. He added R20 to the exterior, and that's to basically create a blanket similar to a quilted blanket that you're putting it around your house.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And
he also, in addition to that, or prior to that, has added a weather/air barrier. What the objective there is to reduce the amount of air getting in through like all those cracks we discussed earlier. And then finally, that weather air barrier is something we carry. It's a European product that's kind of like Gore-Tex for your house. It keeps the rain out, your bulk moisture, but it does allow the house to breathe, which is a very important aspect that we can get into. We could do a whole session on that. There's big debate out there on whether a house should breathe, but and what does breathing mean, really?
Yeah.
So that weather air barrier tightened up the house, then the insulation on top of that, and then he re-sided it and actually did a really a groovy siding mix of finished materials. Anyway, the house performs extremely well. And it's much beyond just doing windows. We carry the mineral wool product. We carry the air barrier products. It's a combination of membranes and tapes.
Yeah.
And we carry the windows. And with the windows, we also use the tapes to air seal around the windows, because that's a big source of air infiltration for any home. Doors and windows are not generally air sealed well.
Yeah.
Well, and just to kind of add some numbers to that, and just some process to that. I did what Todd described kind of in one fell swoop, but certainly people can do it in stages as well. We have a customer who is doing it in stages right now, actually. So it doesn't all have to be done. It can be done when your budget allows you to do it.
Yeah.
And, getting back to what Todd said before, incremental changes make a big difference. I mean, just numbers wise, if you just look at my windows, the surface temperature on my windows on a 40-degree day, the original windows in my house, I was 48 degrees on the inside. So that's pretty cold. Mm-hmm. After I had replaced the windows, on a 30-degree day, I was more like 65 degrees on the inside surface temperature. Wow. So it makes, that on its own made a big difference.
Yeah.
And then likewise, my walls went from a 50-degree surface temperature to about a 65-degree surface temperature. So not everything has to be done at once. It certainly isn't just for new construction.
Yeah.
I think that's where our value add is that, and our education is that we can step in and we can say, this probably makes sense for you to do first, and then you could maybe do this step and help people understand. They don't have to go out and spend a ton of money right away just to get that comfort.
Right.
Well, and to give you more information, this is Mark's personal home, but we have two other projects near his home that do exactly the same thing, maybe not to the same level, and there might be some variations. We've got probably a half dozen projects that are in process right now that they're either contemplating or already pulling the trigger on doing the same thing as Mark has done to his house. So it's starting to take off in the form of a very desirable way to make an existing home more energy efficient, one, too. And really, the comfort quotient is number one. I should say comfort first, energy efficient second, healthier third. It depends on our client. Those may come in different priorities.
Yeah, but those are definitely the three silos that you're trying to address, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the more you guys and I talk, the more I'm thinking I'm going to have to give you a call after the show because we're having unseasonably cold, not unseasonably actually, we're having unusually cold weather here in the Houston area, and it's in the 30s, low 30s outside, and this is one of those rare days when I'm going to TMI, but I'm actually wearing pants while I broadcast. So actually, everyone knows that I don't usually do that. But so the what I find interesting about this is this people the home is such a big part. This podcast, by the way, it's all about story. In the end, it's all about how story impacts the lives of the culture and lives and careers of the people who are in the midst of it. And the home is such a big part of our personal story. When have you guys seen like the impact of the change? Of course, Mark, you've done your home, so you could probably speak to this personally. But have you seen the impact of this, like the before and after of how this changes people's perspective or attitudes toward their home?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as on a personal level, before I did any of this work, it was a miserable place to be, in all honesty. I mean, we were always bundling up. The wind was whipping down through our chimney and through our windows and things like that. And I office out of my house as well. So, I spent all day long, and and now I feel really comfortable. I feel, I don't feel like I need to do anything extraordinary to feel comfortable in the house. Yeah. And
wear a parka.
Right, exactly. I mean, I was wearing a winter coat at some points before I did this in the house. And, we just went through a pretty good cold snap last week where we had about 2 or 3 days of 10 degrees or less. And, the heat ran more often than it would on a day like today, which is closer to 40 degrees. Mm-hmm. But I felt comfortable within the house, and I definitely couldn't have said that before. And it affected from a work perspective. I mean, there was a couple of days before I did this where I would leave the house just to go someplace that was warmer, so my hands didn't feel like they were going to break when I was writing or something. Yeah, yeah. And I think people have, Todd mentioned we have several other projects that are doing something similar that I did to my house, and my neighbor actually has taken it on to the extent that I have, and. For him, it just clicked with him in that, look, I'm going to live in this house. I've almost got my house paid off, mm-hmm. and my biggest bill is going to be my utilities. And he's basically he already had a solar system, a photovoltaic solar system on his roof. When he's done with his house, he's basically he's going to eliminate all utility bills. He won't ever have to worry about that expense ever, as long as he lives in that house. And that's and it's a very big deal for him. He's very, that it's a source of pride for him, mm-hmm. I believe, and I believe it's also just, he saw the financial benefits as well as the environmental benefits of it.
Yeah.
And something I wanted to add, you mentioned you're in Houston.
Yeah.
What we're doing to our homes works in the cooling climates as well. I know it's cold down there in Houston right now, but I think in general, you're a cooling climate. You spend more on keeping your houses cool than you do keeping them warm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's really a function of keeping the heat where it belongs, either outside of the house in the warm months or inside the house during the cold months. We're in Colorado, so we have a heating climate. We're all about keeping the heat in.
Yeah.
But it's a very valid approach in Houston when you're considering the summer months when it's super hot and you're spending tremendous amounts of money on cooling.
Yeah. Yeah. Believe me, we spend a lot on cooling. And I don't know that even making the house more energy efficient is going to change how much we spend on cooling overall, because we like to keep it very chilly in here if we can. Let me ask you, though, is this something the DIY guy can do, or does this require professional installation?
We have DIY guys who are doing it. It depends on the project. It depends on exactly what their goals are for that project. What I would suggest is is there's a lot of good resources out there besides us.
Yeah.
Like Green Building Advisor, Building Green, that talk about a variety of these topics in depth on a daily basis, and a lot of people go there as DIY people just to get some better understanding of what they're doing and if they're doing it correctly. And to me, that's the point. I mean, I was always a DIYer before I became a professional at it. And I've seen a lot of botched DIY jobs.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily encourage it unless you're willing to take the time to be educated and to really understand the proper way of using the products.
I think probably the most important aspect is moisture. When you're back in the 70s, there were a lot of folks that were making these big double stud walls as a response to the energy crisis in the 70s. And a lot of them failed, and they failed because there was moisture building up in the wall assembly, and then you end up with mold and rot in the wood. And in short, managing moisture is probably one of the most important aspects of doing a project like this. Just knowing how to manage moisture best.
Yeah.
Here in Colorado, it's super dry, so we have a little bit more forgiving climate. But when you get into the more humid climates like Houston, there are some other considerations that are very important to really pay attention to.
Yeah. Moisture is a huge problem in Houston.
Yeah. Something
we're constantly dealing with, and mold is as I tilt my head up to make sure it's not back. We had a mold issue in the home because of an air conditioning leak. So that's a scary topic. But so it's fascinating. I mean, this permeates more than just the home. Of course, you guys were saying you also do commercial buildings and that sort of thing. Do you see a lot of traffic on that? Is people moving toward that?
You know, we're pretty we're a relatively small company yet, and the commercial world, it's a bit of a different animal for us, and we've certainly done a few bids in that area, but we're kind of walking before we run, and we're becoming as good as we can be in the residential world as we slowly pursue the commercial world. One, two, the commercial environment generally first cost wins 95, if not more, % of the time.
Yeah. So
the fact that it is going to cost more likely with the products we carry, and the first cost, the initial build budget, we need to make sure we're working with the right client, because it's going to take a pretty special client to pull the trigger on a commercial project with our products.
Yeah,
we're in the commercial world where you're going to see a lot of traction in this. I believe is where the customer is the end user. For instance, like schools, like government buildings, things of that nature, where you have a developer that goes in and he's either selling it or renting it. A lot of times there isn't as much concern because they feel like that they're basically passing the buck onto their tenants.
Yeah.
The utility cost is paid by the tenant, not by the developer, the building owner.
So schools have an interest in it because that definitely goes to their bottom line.
It's owner occupied. That's the real key.
Yeah. Yeah.
It goes to their operations. It goes to the development of the students within the school in terms of their comfort and their ability to produce at optimally. Schools are something. I mean, we just actually came from a Green School Summit here in Colorado, so it's definitely on our minds. But that's definitely a place where we've seen it in the past. We haven't necessarily been involved with it, but the companies that we sell have been involved with schools in the past, and those schools have seen a big difference over what they either originally had if they did a retrofit, or what was projected if it was a new construction in terms of what their operating costs were going to be.
Well, and Mark, it's important to mention that the difference is not just in energy costs, it's in maintenance, it's in student performance. Scores actually improve with a more comfortable building than with the less comfortable building.
There's the student health topic you can bring up. I'm sure that hits the right notes with some people, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, indoor air quality is certainly important to the parents.
Yeah. Oh, and to the students, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maybe not consciously, but yeah.
Right.
I just remember sitting in my elementary school or whatever, and just it was a horrible place it was filled with aromas that I never want to smell again. And not all of them man-made. I mean, there were, it always smelled musty and moldy, and so. Who else is in this? Well, we don't have to talk about your competition per se. I don't want to give them any airtime, but how competitive is this space?
Well, as far as companies like ours that are particularly concentrating on the building envelope and the products involved, and just one step back, the reason why we do that is because once you build the building, it's very difficult to go back and make changes and improvements to that building envelope. So that's why we feel like that's an important area of concentration.
Yeah,
it's generally not done for another 20 or 30 years. Do they look at that again? Because it's built, you're not going to take your siding off. You've got brand new siding. You're not going to redo it.
Right.
So until it's ready to be redone. So if you're going to do it, build it right the first time.
Yeah.
And so our competition, although they might sell some of our products or similar products to what we sell, most of what we're doing, as far as I know, we're kind of a lone animal out there where we're concentrating on that envelope and really trying to push. The idea is that you could come to us and you could buy all of those products and meet those envelope needs and not go anyplace else. Where some of our competition would sell some of the things we sell and not others, and they don't really have the whole vision of the envelope as a system. They might have it philosophically, but they don't push it commercially like we are as a complete system, and that you can purchase it from us.
So you guys, do you own the whole manufacturing process for these products? I mean, do you?
No.
Okay.
We, eventually someday we may have a manufacturing arm, but we do not manufacture any of these. We've assembled a set of products from various suppliers that work extremely well together.
Okay. And are those, how do I ask this delicately? Are they American-made products or are they primarily imports?
Combination. We've got a window manufacturer that we work with that's right here in Colorado, and they sell all over the country.
Yeah.
And then we have another window manufacturer that we work with that's out of Europe, and we're doing the European style windows with that company.
Yeah.
Wall System is a SIP system that's out of Missouri, and it's a polyurethane SIP. We do get our membranes and tapes for weather and air barriers from a company that's out of Switzerland named Siga. And then we've got a couple of homegrown U.S.-made mechanical ventilation systems. Once you have a really tight envelope, and that's what we want. Everybody says you want it. Your walls should breathe, and no, they should not. They should not breathe.
Oh, okay, all right. I find that surprising.
You build it tight, and then you ventilate right. Is the saying? Build it tight, ventilate right. The key is to bring in fresh air, but do it under your terms, not through holes in the walls and around the windows. You want to do it. You want to do it mechanically, and the reason why you do it mechanically is because you can then control, one, the quality of the air, and two, the heat, how much you're losing, or gaining.
Or the cold. Depending. Sorry? Or the cool air, right?
Right. So with these buildings, you generally want an ERV or an HRV. That's energy recovery ventilation or heat recovery ventilation. They're very similar in nature. One manages moisture and one dumps the moisture. That's the only real difference between the two. And what it does is you let's say it's winter time. In your climate in the summer it would be the exact opposite. But since we're cold right now, it's a good time to talk about it this way. You're taking stale air out of your building and then you're bringing fresh air in. And what the ERV does is it transfers the heat from the stale air that's going out to the incoming fresh airstream.
Okay.
A good ERV or HRV will achieve 90+% heat recovery. So you're only losing 10% of your heat. When you're getting fresh air in through the cracks in your walls, you're losing all of it, 100% of it. And with a mechanical ventilation system, you're recovering 90+% of the heat. Now you're using some energy to do that because you've got blowers that are moving the air. But generally also a good ERV or HRV is using high performance blowers and motors. And therefore at 100 cubic feet per minute, you might be using 70 to 90 watts of energy, a large light bulb, incandescent light bulb.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
Right.
So, okay, well, so we're up against the end mark for the show, but I this has been an interesting topic, and I want to make sure that everybody knows where they can go and find you guys. So you're primarily, pardon me, you're primarily available on your website at aebuildingsystems.com, right?
Right.
And you guys have Facebook and Twitter presence and all that?
We do.
We do.
So check them out. And I see right there in the top corner of your website. So if you go on the website, you can click on those little buttons and follow you guys and get involved in a conversation about how all this stuff works. And I'll probably be one of those pretty soon because now I'm thinking I need new windows at the very least. So excuse me again. In the midst of our conversation, apparently my throat's decided to rebel on me. So I'm going to just go ahead and wrap things up, but thank you guys so much for being on the show, and this was a great interview. I may have to do tag team interviews again in the future.
All right, thanks, Kevin.
All right, everybody, go and check these guys out. It's AE Building Systems. You can see them online at aebuildingsystems.com. You can also pick that up in the show notes where all the links end up living. You can follow them on Facebook, G+, Twitter, and send them an email, sing them a song, whatever you want to do. So thanks so much, guys, for being on. As usual, everyone, go check me out online at kevintumblison.com/podcast for all the notes on this show and others, and we will see you next week. Well, that was Todd Collins and Mark Attard, and it's a fascinating topic to me because I'm kind of a builder. I like to tinker with things and build things, but that's such a large scale that I've always been intimidated by the process of building and updating an entire building. But it's doable actually, and if I'm going to do it, I would rather do it with materials that are help with the energy efficiency and help with benefiting me in health ways and that sort of thing. So this has been a fascinating topic for me. I'm probably going to dig in a little more on that in the future. I'm a maker at heart. What can I say? And I think this folds in. I think it's all part of the American manufacturing revolution, which we discussed a few episodes ago, if you recall, when we were talking with Kevin Fall. Kevin. We were talking to Kevin Fall at Conway Electric. I had his name right on the tip of my tongue, I promise. How could I forget that? So, at any rate, we're going to wrap up, but I hope you, again, Merry Christmas to you. I hope you had a wonderful one. I know the New Year's coming up. I'm aiming to have another episode release on the New Year. So, or the day after, and you're going to be a little too bleary-eyed, I know, to pay attention, but that's why the archives are here. That's what it's all about. So, and actually, if I'm right, and I can check, but I believe that episode is going to be a pretty special episode for me personally, and probably for you. Yes, let me verify. Great radio, isn't it? Yes. Okay. Here's you need to tune in. Let's just put it that way. Tune in for the New Year's episode. You're gonna like it. So, especially if you happen to be an author. I'm teasing you too much. Look, okay, here's the deal. Joanna Penn from the Creative Penn podcast is going to be on the show next week. And that's confirmed. It's guaranteed. Well, okay. Let me take back that guarantee slightly because I'm still on the fence about whether I should release a podcast on the day after New Year's. So I'm a little iffy about it, but let's just assume that's when it's going to happen for now. And if it doesn't, sorry, I'll make up for it somehow. But I just want to make sure, because that's such a big podcast too for me. I want to make sure that she gets her due on it. But anyway. We're going to wrap up. Take care of yourselves. I will see you next week, probably, and definitely the week after that. So keep listening, keep writing in. If you have questions, drop by kevintumlinson.com/podcast. I should also mention, by the way, that you can, the guys we just talked to, you can actually learn more about their system, their building system at aebuildingsystems.com. I did say that at the front end of the show, but I want to make sure you got that for your notes. And again, that's going to be in the show notes. So if you're interested, check them out. That's pretty cool. So, and you can learn more about me and my work at kevintumlinson.com. If you go to kevintumlinson.com/podcast, you can actually leave me a voicemail straight from your computer. Or send me an email if you're more comfortable. I'll read things on air. If you ask me a question, I promise I will. If you have a question from any of my guests, I always ask them if it's okay, and they always say yes, to forward something on to them, and we may even get them back on a show later to answer questions if you've got them. So if nothing else, you'll get an email. So take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful, happy, Merry Christmas. My love to all of you. God bless all of you. And I will see you in the new year.
Word Slinger.